Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to speak with you and talk a little bit more about the registry. One of the first things that comes up in discussion with people is what actually is a patient registry. According to NIH, or the National Institute of Health, a registry is a collection of information about individuals that's usually focused around a specific diagnosis or condition. Now, registries come in kind of different shapes and sizes. We can, in a general sense, categorize them as contact registries or research registries. A contact registry is one of the more basic forms of registries. It is usually composed of both contact information and some basic demographics, but it should not be construed to be an email list. Even at its most basic, a contact registry needs to collect information sufficient to evaluate inclusion or exclusion criteria for research studies. Research registries, by comparison, are much more complex. They also come in a number of varieties. They can be clinical-centric in the sense that they're medical records derived data, which is usually entered by a member of the study team. So somebody that actually works at that clinical site is responsible for doing the data entry. Data itself is what we call quantitative data. You can ask yourself, what's quantitative data? It is actually information that is a definitive measure. So like height and weight, how much of something, laboratory test results, those are all quantitative data. In a clinical-centric registry, the clinician or researcher are actually the experts. They're the ones who decide what information is collected, what the important elements are to collect and analyze. This type of a registry is often used for natural history data collection. And natural history is literally monitoring a disease over a period of time and capturing the changes in symptoms so that we know what the natural progression of a disease is. And that's important because if we're going to propose to do clinical studies or to intervene in the disease, we need to know what the natural course of the disease is so that we have a yardstick to measure against. Clinical-centric registries are also quite often used then for hypothesis testing. They are the type of registry that we use to test interventions very often because of the type of data that is collected there. In contrast, a patient-centric research registry is very often data entered by the participant. And this type of data is very often qualitative. Qualitative data really means descriptive data. It's more how and why and describing something than it is actually measuring with a yardstick. It's very rich data, which is quite informative when it comes to assessing impact of a disease on a person or their family. And in this sense, the patient-centric registry, the patients themselves or their family members and caregivers are the experts. We can also use a patient-centric registry for natural history. It just is a different type of data analysis. This information is important for hypothesis generation. It helps us look and gain new ideas for new questions we should ask and can use that then to measure in a follow-up study. Perhaps even more importantly is the fact that a registry is, in its own sense, a community. A patient registry fosters a sense of community and belongingness. It offers the opportunity to develop new relationships and it gives participants a voice. This is very important when it's a rare disease, when you may be the only person at your clinical site or doctor's office who has this diagnosis. Participation in a registry can actually remove that sense of isolation and can provide a sense of identity and validation. Joining a registry in and of itself is an act of advocacy. So a registry creates hope, and it provides an opportunity for self-determination, proactiveness that is really lacking, especially in rare diseases with limited or no treatment.